Hello. This is going to be a video that's going over it's a Broombach lesson designed specifically for Algebra 1 students and how to use the Desmos calculator based on the algebra that we do in class. So I'm going to go through a couple of topics with you and show you specifically how to use Desmos in order to solve those topics. It's important to note that when I give you some practice today, I want you to first solve it manually, and then second, use it to check it. So we're practicing both skills. Desmos is an awesome calculator. It does a lot of great things. It's very intuitive to use, but it's also important to make sure that you know how to use it appropriately. Okay, and that way, when you go to take your SOL in May, you don't have to worry so much about whether it's, you make a little mistake, like you forget a negative sign, and it kind of redirects your entire answer. Okay, you will have access to this on the SOL, so it's important to keep that in mind. Full access to Desmos. All right, so the first thing, there we go, I'm going to show you is what this is actually how it's going to look on the SOL, really similar to this. You have some more options, like you could click and drag it around, make it larger or smaller, but I'll just kind of slide it out and slide it back on. So for evaluating expressions, it's great because it evaluates expressions for you. You just have to make sure you type the whole thing in accurately. And please, please, please don't forget about parentheses around negative numbers. So you want to put anytime, because Desmos is just like when you type it in by hand originally. This would equal 36, you know that. But if you type this in Desmos, it's going to say that it equals negative 36, so you have to make sure that you wrap parentheses around it. Okay, so let's see. This says 2 to the a, so I'm actually going to, on your computers, you can click and highlight to put everything in the numerator, but on here it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm just going to actually put the numerator in parentheses. So 2, and then the a to the b button, 2 to the 4th, so I'm just substituting it, and I'm going to arrow out. Cube root, which is in a weird spot. It's like in the functions button, in miscellaneous, and it's the square root with an n on it. And they want you to type the index in first. So I guess I should probably put a plus sign here. There we go. Nope. There we go. So 2 to the 4th plus the cube root of b, which in this case is 8, plus c squared. Oops, and you'll see that I'm still under the radicals. So you want to make sure you arrow out either on the keyboard, or you can arrow out with these buttons over here that are underneath the functions buttons. And let's see, so cube root of 8 plus, and then we want c squared again. Make sure you put parentheses. Okay, and all of that's going in the numerator. So I'm going to close the numerator out, and then I'm going to hit divided. And that way it throws all of that in the top. And the absolute value of d plus 4, and d is negative 10. So negative 10 plus 4, and then you can finalize it. So the answer for this one would just be 9. So just be very mindful of how you're typing it in. But it's really fast. And if by chance you get something kind of crazy, like, that's not that crazy, but if you ever get a decimal, you can just hit the fraction button, and it will convert your answer into a fraction in proper form, which is what we like anyway. All right, so how can it help us with solving equations? This is going to blow your mind. So you can solve the whole problem out, and then you could hand plug the answer back in. So you could plug in, like, if you thought the answer was negative 5, you could plug that back in here and see if the two sides are equal. So that would be 3 minus negative 4 over 4 equals 8 minus negative 10, which would be 18, equals, it's looking like it's a no, plus 1. So it's not going to be negative 5. So you could do that, and it would take a long time. Desmos can check your answer for this very quickly. Like I said, you want to solve by hand first. But when you're testing, to make sure that you have gotten the right answer, there's kind of a trick you can use. If you type in the equation as is, and whatever variable, you would just define it as x, like this, the whole equation, and it's 3. So it basically gives you a vertical line, and the vertical line is x equals 3, so that's going to be our answer for this one. So it's wild, so fast. Now, if it's a decimal, you're going to have to know how to convert that decimal into a fraction. So just be aware that it does have limitations. It can't always be used, but when you're checking, it's super fast. Okay, inequalities. So inequalities is almost the same. We're going to type it in just as is, 4 times 2 minus x, and then there's a greater than or equal to button on here, and then negative x minus 5. Desmos knows how to shade, so again, they're giving you a vertical line because they're really solving this inequality for you and then graphing it. So that's the math that's happening on where they're getting the answer from, but you can see that it's definitely intersecting at the 1, so you can immediately eliminate A and B. And you have to remember that you're shading for this. If the shading is to the left of the line, it's going to be less than. If the shading is to the right of the line, that would be greater than. So you can use that kind of trick in order to double check again when you go to solve just by hand the same way you would. You can go in and check in Desmos. All right, systems of equations is so easy. It literally graphs everything for you. So on your SOL, if they give you a systems question, which I'm not really sure if they're going to do too many because they know students will just plug it in like this. But if they give you a systems question, I would not spend my time solving it on the SOL just because there's like 55 questions. So you kind of want to move past and move on to some stuff that you can't just do quickly in a calculator. So basically you just solve, they graph each line separately, and then where the point of intersection is, that's where your answer is. System of inequalities, and I'm actually going to do an additional one on this too. You do the same thing. 3x minus 4y is less than or equal to 4. Whoops. So there's your graph. So you could just kind of sketch it from there on this problem. The other thing they might do is they might give you some points to see if they're solutions. So let's say if they said was -3 a solution, -2, 3. You could type that in as a point, and if it's in the shaded region, it works. If it's on a dashed line, it doesn't work. So if they give you the point, I think 0, 1, right, because it looks like your y-intercept 0, -1. If they gave you that, -1, on here, it would work. But if we change this inequality to just less than, oops, it would not work. And that's the other thing too, you can have less than or equal to, and then if you actually just hit the back button once, it'll change it to a less than. Dash lines don't get, they don't get the points. Or if it was, of course, maybe like not even in the region, like 5, 0, you can see where that would be on the graph. But again, use it as a tool because it's a nice visual to what you're trying to figure out. So instead of having to plug in and hand solve for each one of these, you could just graph and kind of see which points are satisfied for that inequality. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is function notation. Let me just clean all this stuff out. So function notation, it means that f of x, so it's the f of x kind of look. So for this, you can actually type out f of x. It knows, Desmos, very smart, knows that that's the same thing as y. So you can actually type this whole equation in, and you can actually use it to help you for the first one on here to find ordered pairs. So you could type in -1, -8, and you'll see that it's on the line, so that works. We're looking for points that are on the line, so then 0, -5, that also works. Let me try to find one that doesn't. 1, 3, see, that one doesn't work, so that's a no. So instead of plugging them in by hand, this kind of problem could take, at least 5 minutes, maybe longer, depending. And it makes it a lot shorter. You could just get a quick visual and you know that that has to be a solution. All right, as my kid's waking up upstairs, let me finish this last one up. If we have f of x equals 1/4 x plus 5, this notation here just means when x is -8, but again, Desmos knows that notation, so once you type in the function notation, you can type in the f of -8 and get your answer of 3, which you would still get, if you plugged it in by hand and then solve that expression. Okay, that was a lot. What I want you to work on now is that worksheet that I'm going to provide you. Work about by hand. Check everything you can in Desmos. It's important to make sure that you feel comfortable with how to use it on these types of problems. All right, thank you so much. I hope it was helpful.